baby, here I go. Start the show, beat on my heart now, about to explode. I'm about to explode. Feel good, what I'm feeling.
Good evening, everyone, and happy Thursday or Friday Eve, as I like to call it, meaning that we are one day closer to the weekend. And I don't know about you, but I'm excited about that. And I'm also excited that the weather feels like summertime. I know the calendar says it's springtime, but today it was in the upper 80s. And I just felt like, you know what? I don't want the makeup. I don't want any whole lot of stuff because it's quite warm out. And so I hope that wherever you are enjoying the day. However, I do recognize that there are many people in different parts of the country, especially Fort Lauderdale, Florida, dealing with some extremely heavy rains and floods, unprecedented. And so while I am excited about the sunshine and the warm temperatures, I do recognize that there are people who are dealing with so many other things. So whether it's floods, it's wildfires, whatever the case may be, I want to be mindful and respectful of the fact that people are dealing with things on this day, and not all of it is enjoying the sunshine and the warm temperature. So my thoughts and prayers to those families and communities who are trying to figure out how to move on from this disaster or disaster situation. So I do want to also acknowledge that this is Black Women's History Month. And so as that graces the ticker of the screen, I do want to take this opportunity to welcome any new people into this conversation. And if you are here for the first time, I do want to take this opportunity to introduce myself. I am Ericka Sallee, speaker, self-help author, transformation success coach, and owner of TruSynergy. I get excited because as a result of my personal coaching programs and my professional development sessions, I do help women and organizations to figure out what is it that stands in the way of your success. And of course, sharing the strategies to move beyond that is really where the transformation comes in. And so tonight's conversation on Ignite Your True Self is just one extension of being able to share nuggets and some tips that you can take away from this conversation and continue on your journey to your true self. Now, you may be saying, well, what is my true self? And what is that all about? Well, I'm glad that you're asking the question. Your true self is whatever aligns you to purpose, fulfillment, joy, happiness, peace, achieving your goals and your dreams, moving the barriers out of the way that's stopping you from doing that. And these are brief conversations that hopefully you will get the nuggets that you need to just give you that little bit of fuel to help you move forward to the next. And when we think about change and transformation and doing something different, it's always about the next best step. I heard NCAA women's basketball champion Angel Reese say this. And she said a lot of times what she talks about with her team is let's take the NBA, not the National Basketball Association, but the next best action. And I loved it when I heard her say that because it is so connected to the transformation journey. And so this being here with me, whether you are seeing this live or you happen to see the replay, whether you're seeing it in the evening, the afternoon, the morning, whatever time you happen to be seeing this, I do believe that it is the right time. And so consider this your next best action toward your true self. So as I said, it is Black Women's History Month. And I got to tell you, I really wasn't sure who I was going to highlight in this conversation until I heard a story earlier on ESPN. And so tonight's spotlight is on Corinne Wright Tarver. Corinne Wright Tarver. Now, I hope I'm pronouncing her first name correctly because I'm saying Corinne, but as I was looking at a couple of videos, I heard some of the other announcers pronouncing it differently. So I am going to say Corinne because it's the way it looks like it's spelled to me. And hopefully I'm saying that correctly to respect her. But she is the first Black NCAA gymnastics, champion at the University of Georgia, or from the University of Georgia. And now she is the first head coach of HBCU, historically Black colleges and universities, Fisk University Women's Artistic Gymnastics. Let me read that again, because I really got excited when the Summer Olympics comes. Gymnastics is one of my favorite events to watch. And so when I saw this story, it was basically highlighting not only her accomplishments, but what she's doing to bring attention not just to her HBCU, Fisk University, but also spreading it to other HBCUs and just creating and cultivating some amazing Black female gymnasts. And so I was looking at a quote from her, and she basically said, when beginning gymnastics, there were very few role models that looked like me. I remember watching Diane Durham and realizing that a Black girl could be the best in the country. I knew at that moment that I wanted to be a member of the U.S. national team and be a role model for future Black and brown gymnasts. And I thought, that was an amazing quote. She's doing amazing work to create amazing women in this sport. And I am excited about the future of what this will look like in terms of regional, national, and even the Olympics. And so if you get an opportunity, there is a link on YouTube from her 1986 performance. And I don't know if this was a regional competition, but her floor exercise was just flawless. And I think on a scale of 10, she got like a 9.9. I don't know where the point came off because it looked flawless to me. But of course, I don't have the eye that the professional judges would have. But anyway, so again, Corinne Wright Tarver, she was the first Black NCAA gymnast champion from the University of Georgia, and now is the first head coach of HBCU Fisk University Women's Artistic Gymnastics. Okay, definitely worth checking her out and really watching the product that she is putting out into the world in terms of these wonderful female athletes. And so before we get into the topic for tonight, I do want to encourage you to use the hashtag Ignite Your True Self. If you happen to be watching this and there's an aha moment or a nugget that you get from this conversation, then I do want you to use the hashtag Ignite Your True Self. And again, I want to be clear. True Self is TruSelf. So Ignite Your True Self and share what your nuggets are that you take away from this conversation. And then the hashtag, of course, lets other people know what you got from the conversation. So let's go ahead and jump into the topic for tonight. Tonight, I want to talk about moving beyond regret. Moving beyond regret. Now, how many of you have ever said, oh, I wish I had done, you fill in the blank, or I should have done this, and you fill in the blank, or you might just sit back and think and reflect, and all you can say is, darn, I missed it. I missed the opportunity. So many of us have done that. So many of us may be doing that right now. And so that's why I want to have this conversation tonight. So when we talk about igniting your true self, this is all about what rises up for us when we think about what that might look like, whether you're trying to achieve the simplest goal of getting a new job or going back to school or something bigger than that. And of course, for all of us, your true self, your essence is going to look different. But a lot of times when we think about this thing called regret, it shows up in so many different ways. And let me just read this to you. This is something that is on the back of my book, Pathway to Purpose. Find it, follow it, fulfill it. Fulfill it. You can find it on Amazon. But here's the thing that was part of the reason why I wrote the book, because one of the things I say is, you know, the past, fear, uncertainty, and our limiting beliefs keep us stuck in the familiar, even as we suspect that something is missing in our lives. This doesn't have to be you. If you're ready, Pathway to Purpose can help you make the connections that lead you to your calling so that you can follow it and you can fulfill it to your heart's content. But here's the thing that's really, really the clincher here is that we all have a purpose that fuels and inspires us to be intentional with our actions. And here's the thing that when I say we talk about regret and we think, oh gosh, I wish I had, yet far too many of us deprive ourselves of the chance to discover what this looks like for us. So when we talk about regret, oftentimes it is we look up and we say, oh my gosh, or, you know, there's something that we're holding on to and we go to the grave with it. There is I don't know how to call it, I don't want to say a parable, but there's a story that I heard some time ago. And I think this came from Joel Osteen. And he's telling it in reference to, you know, a person dies, goes to heaven. St. Peter meets this person at the pearly gates and takes the person into this huge room. And in the room, there are boxes that are floor to ceiling and they're spread all throughout the room. And so the person asks St. Peter, says, well, you know, what is all of this? What are all these boxes? And St. Peter says to the person, these are all of the gifts that you left untapped. And these are all of the people who didn't get the benefit of the gifts that you never unboxed. Just think about that for a moment. So when we think about regret, the conversation tonight is with the intention to help us move beyond that regret and to allow us to start using today as a pivotal point to think differently about what it is that we want to accomplish, what we want to achieve, and really not just what we want to create for a daily perspective for ourselves, but to leave behind. Okay. So let me first say this. A lot of times when we think about regret, it is with the connection or it's tied to things from the past, right? So let's just be perfectly honest. As human beings, we often say things, we do things, we have experiences, we have connections with people, we make mistakes, and we're just like, oh gosh, I can't believe that happened. Or I can't believe I did this. Or I can't believe I allowed that to happen. Or, you know, I can't believe I allowed this person to treat me this way. And you can really sit down and kind of look over the landscape of your life and come up with at least, I'm gonna say at least, because I know many of us, myself included, can come up with way more, but at least for sake of conversation, 5 things that you can say, gosh, I wish I hadn't said that. I wish I hadn't done that. And it can really grip us to the point of not being able to move forward. So, the first tip in this topic, moving beyond regret, is to make peace with the past. To make peace with the past. To make peace with situations, with conversations, with people, experiences, however you want to fill in the blank. But to make peace with the past means that we are allowing ourselves to understand I'm human, I've made mistakes, things have happened that didn't quite go my way. I wish it were different, but okay, there's nothing I can do to go back and change it. So the only thing for me to do is to make peace with that conversation, to make peace with that person, to make peace with that situation. And here's the thing. I'll share a couple ways on how to do this, but here's one of the things to remember is that nobody can really tell you how to make peace. Okay. There are certain things that happen in our lives that um, when we make that peace, sometimes it's internal and it's not something that someone else may know or that you may have to express to someone else unless there is how do I want to say it? Unless there is some hurt or some tension or something that needs to be resolved. Okay. But sometimes you're making peace with your past in order to release that regret may only happen with you in your space, in your private time, in your quiet time, in your prayer time, in your meditation time. So that leads me into, well, how do you make peace? I'm going to give you a couple of options and you can kind of decide where this may fit for you. So forgive yourself. All right. Forgive yourself. And if you subscribe to, believe in, support, have a philosophy around a certain type of faith, then you go to your source, whether that's God, Allah, Buddha, whomever. But part of that forgiving yourself means that you're putting yourself in a spiritual place with your source to help you relieve some of that regret. Okay. That's one way. Another way to make peace with the past in order to move beyond regret is to have meaningful conversations. Now, again, meaningful conversations may be within you, it may be within your prayer time, or it may be with someone specific if it needs to get to that point. Okay. And only you and the situation and the person understand what that might look like, but that's another option. Release old ways of thinking. This is another way to make peace with the past, put that where it belongs, and then move beyond regret. Here's a really simple example that literally just happened before I started the show tonight. So, as I said, it's 80 plus degrees here in Maryland. Now, I have had the windows open all day. Windows downstairs, windows upstairs open. And it's been a little warm, but downstairs, there's been a breeze kind of flowing through. But upstairs, and we all know heat rises. So my son is here and he says, Mom, can we turn the air on? And I thought, man, it's April. I don't really want to turn the air on because we still have a whole long summer to go. And I don't know what this summer is going to bring. I feel like, it's going to be one of those hot, hot summers. And so I was reluctant to turn on the air. Now, mind you, my thermostat upstairs says it's 84 degrees upstairs. And when I looked at the thermostat, I said, okay. And even before I got to changing my mind, I was like, well, let me open up the windows in the bedroom on the other side of you so you can get a cross breeze. I was just reluctant to turn on that air. When I looked at that thermostat, I was like, oh God, it's 84 degrees. And I had to stop. Now this is a releasing an old way of thinking. I had to stop and recognize, because in my brain, I'm like, it's April, it's springtime, it's not summertime yet. And so it's too early to turn on the air. And number one, I ain't trying to give my gas and electric company any more money than they need to get too soon. Okay. So that was my train of thought. And when I stopped to think about, why are you so reluctant to turn on this air? Had to go into my son's room and I said, when I was growing up, we didn't have air condition. We didn't. We had probably an air conditioned unit in the window, but not central air like we have now. And I said, and I remember that when we did have some kind of different cooling system in one of the other, many times that we moved around, I remember hearing like either my mom or mostly my mom, because my grandmother, we didn't have central air in our house growing up, was like, we can't turn the air on during a certain time. Like if it's, March and it's 95 degrees because it's March by the calendar and it's not summertime, but it's 95 degrees. No. The season hasn't changed yet. So I had to think about where that was coming from. And I had to say to my son, my mind was saying, because it's April and it's not summer, then it's too early to turn on the air. Because that's what I remember as I, was like, mid to late teens. So when we release old ways of thinking, we also can separate ourselves from some of the things that cause us regret. Now, the air conditioning story isn't something that the only regret would be that he would be upstairs miserable and I would be miserable too. So that is a regret. But the premise to that is sometimes we just got to let go of some of the things that we've been taught, some of the things that we've grown up with, because that can limit us from going after something that our heart desires. And then that's when the regret comes in. Okay. So we can begin to make peace with the past, which then leads us to letting go of that regret by letting go of some of the old stuff that either we've been taught from our family, from our parents, from people that we're used to hanging around with, and it just doesn't serve us anymore. I've talked about this multiple times in this space, and I will continue to bring this up as it's applicable, because there are some things that we just have to let go. Some people we have to let go, because sometimes those things are attached to the things that are keeping us from moving forward. And then that's when we become resentful, we become angry, we become frustrated, and that's when the regret sets in. Okay, so here's another way to make peace with the past so that you can move beyond regret, and that is therapy. Therapy is a wonderful opportunity to heal, to grow, to learn, to understand, to reflect. I've not made it a secret that that's part of my own self-care journey that I'm still on, and I will continue to be on it. And, being in a space where you can kind of sift through ideas and sift through thoughts, it's like, wait a minute, I'm holding on to this, which may lead to, oh, you know what? I haven't made peace with the past. I haven't made peace with the situation. I haven't made peace with the person. And now I'm holding on to this regret, and I'm trying to figure out, well, why can't I move forward? Okay. So this first tip is around making peace with the past. And I just gave you 4 specific examples as to how you can do that. So if you're just coming into the conversation, if there's something that resonates with you, please, by all means, put a comment in the chat. There she is. Hey, after therapy, get a life coach. Listen, thank you for that. And I want to say you can always have a conversation with me on what that can look like for you. So I do appreciate you putting that out there. So let's move on to tip number 2. So I don't know if you had an opportunity to either join me last week or check out the conversation from last week. It was all about why we keep postponing our happiness. And if you did not see the show, then I do encourage you to go to my YouTube channel. You can see the replay there. As soon as you click on the channel, Ericka Sallee, there is a link at the top or somewhere near the top, or I should say under the banner, and for live. And you can click on that link and you can see all the shows. Well, last week's show was about why we keep postponing our happiness. And so when you think about letting go of regret, it's quite simply a refresher or an extension of last week's conversation. So tip number 2 is about seeking happiness. It's about seeking happiness. When we think about things that, and it can be so simple. So here's a question here, or here's a part of what relates to this topic. I'm not even sure how I was trying to get that out, but it came out. So let's say, for instance, you decide that, and there's 2 ways to look at this. So I'm going to take both sides. So let's say, for instance, it's a hot day and you say to yourself, oh my gosh, I really just want something refreshing, something to cool me off, something that makes me think about summertime, even if it's springtime still by the calendar. And you say, I really want to go to Cold Stone and get a little Like It ice cream. Now, Cold Stone has Like It, Love It, Gotta Have It. And sometimes when I might do the Gotta Have It, but let me just keep it simple for this conversation. So in that moment, you might say, it's been a long day. I've worked hard and I just want something that's going to make me feel good. So let me go and get some ice cream. Okay. So That's a moment of, I'm going to take this time to seek happiness. I'm going to take this time to seek out something that's going to bring me joy. And that might just be the thing that brings me joy, right? Now, the flip side of that is you might say, you know what? I've had enough Cold Stone. Maybe you're the opposite end of the spectrum where you say, I've been eating too much Cold Stone. So, in order for me to shift this so that I can feel happy and feel good about how I'm taking care of my body, I'm going to say, no, I won't go to Cold Stone. Maybe I'll go to Froyo. Do they still exist? I don't know. But frozen yogurt, right? Something healthier. The point of the conversation is, when we think about regret, it's often because we are stuck in this tunnel of doing things or not doing things that bring us happiness, that bring us joy. And that's why I said, if you did not check out last week's show, go back to the show and then come back and really think about why this is so important. Because when we sit around and we're moping and we're sad and we're connected to things and people that don't serve us, that don't help to support that joy, or we don't find the things that fulfill us to the point of saying, you know what, I'm going to do this so that I don't have the regrets. I'm going to do this because it makes me happy, it brings me joy, and I don't want to look back and say, oh, dang it, I wish that I had stopped to get ice cream. Or I wish that I had made a different decision and I had gone to choose something else. Okay, that's a simple example. So let me take it to the opposite end of the spectrum. Okay, so let's say that you are in a place right now when you're watching this and you say, okay, this is about igniting my true self, and it's all about joy and helping me to be in a place where I feel good about who I am and how I'm showing up. So how do I put that in the context of not living with regret? So let me ask you this question, and you can type this in the chat or in the comments. How many of you right now are watching this show and you're thinking to yourself, there's something that I've been wanting to do? I've been thinking about this thing for a really long time, and I just haven't done it. I haven't taken the next best action, the MBA. And I can't take credit for that. Again, if you didn't hear at the beginning, Angel Reese, LSU, NCAA women's basketball champion, said this. You haven't taken the next best action. So if you're thinking about whatever that thing is, ask yourself this. If I don't move forward with this, then will I regret this tomorrow, next week, next month, next year? If I don't take this step, if I don't move into this thing, if I don't start the process, if I don't make the phone call, if I don't send the email, if I don't post the message, if I don't reach out to the person, if I don't, then will I regret it? And you think about whatever that might be. So when you ask yourself that question, then that leads me to tip number 3. And tip number 3 is also a little similar to what we touched on in last week's conversation, but I want to bring it back to the forefront in a slightly different context. And that is to create a daily intention around living with purpose. I just want to let that marinate for a minute. When we think about moving away from regret is often associated with us being in a place where we're not completely satisfied, where we're not completely thrilled about where we are in life, whether that's in your career or whether that's in your personal relationships. And that could be friendships, it could be an intimate relationship. It's all about looking at where am I right now? And am I really excited about what's happening in my space? And if you know that in some form or fashion there's something that's missing, then let's say tomorrow you wake up and you say, gosh, I'm still feeling that same kind of way. I still feel like something is missing. So if you sit in that space and you stay right there, then what's going to happen is the next day, next week, next month, next year, several years down the road, what's going to come up is regret. I didn't take the opportunity to seek happiness. I didn't seek the opportunity to enjoy the ride along the way. So, this tip right here says to create a daily intention around living with purpose. Now, you might also say, okay, it's either I'm creating a daily intention around living with purpose, I'm creating a daily intention around doing things that bring me joy, that make me happy. There it is again. But every single day, I'm doing something. Here's another way to put that. And I'm sure many of you, I've seen this several times on social media, I'm sure that you have too, is the statement that says, what can I do today to get me this much closer or the next step toward my purpose or joy or kindness or making something happen for myself? So that's another way to look at this tip. Creating a daily intention around living with purpose is making that statement. And I do want to say, one of our viewers from last week said it best. It's like, every day I'm trying to figure out how I can do something that is going to bring me joy, bring me peace. But this is a little bit more of an extension beyond that, right? This is saying, if I know that right now I'm not happy in my job, then am I going to regret not seeking other opportunities or making plans to do my own thing? Am I going to regret that if right now I know how I'm feeling about where I am? And if the answer to, "Ooh, I might just look back and regret." I might just look back and say, oh, I wish I had. So why not let today be the day when you say, I think I need to do something different. I think I need to explore some options. Now, I'm not telling you, and I'm going to say this because I don't want anybody to leave this conversation and say, oh, I heard what she said. She said to just go on and do something different, like walk away from my job. That is not what I'm saying. What I am saying is that if you are in a place and you know for sure that something is not sitting right, then you owe it to yourself to say, well, what else is there? Still showing up in the space that you need to be, still doing the things that are required of you, but giving yourself the opportunity to move beyond the potential for regret if you don't take the next best action now. If you say, and here's something that I had to come to grips with, and I won't go into too much of it now because you'll hear more about it down the road. But one of the things I was totally against, totally against in this single world that I'm living in, is I was like, I don't want to sign up for no dating site. I don't want to do that. That's weird. That's strange. That's not what I'm used to, right? But 30 years later, nobody's just like introducing you to somebody. So I had to think about, if I don't connect with people in this new world of how you're supposed to meet people, then am I going to regret that I didn't have the opportunity to at least try to build new relationships? So you got to look at, where am I right now? If there's something that's happening and I know that if I don't move or I don't do this or I don't take the next step, then I'm going to look back and say, damn, why didn't I? Then this is the opportunity to say, let me create a daily intention around living with purpose. Now, you might be saying, our conversation on this changed my life. Man, just wanted you to know. I appreciate that. And I appreciate more so than that is that it did something for you and it made a difference. So I'm grateful that you shared that. I get excited when I know that, there's a little nugget that makes a difference in anybody's life that creates change or transformation. So thank you, thank you, thank you for sharing that. So you might say, okay, so how do I create this daily intention around living with purpose so that I don't wake up and say, darn it, I regret that I didn't do that. And here's what I want to say too before just because it popped into my head. There's always an opportunity to change the trajectory, the thought, the action. If we get stuck in this place where we've been holding on to regret, or we feel like regret is about to creep up and really take a hold of everything we're thinking about, everything we're trying to do, how we're feeling, all of that, we can always say, nope, I'm not going to dwell on regret because there's nothing I can do about what happened then, but I can do something about now and projecting forward. Okay. So I just wanted to mention that. So creating daily intention around living with purpose, and then I'm going to let you go. So when you talk about moving beyond regret, it is associating with something that's meaningful. So that if you felt regret to this point, then you can set yourself up to say, "Ooh, I know what that's felt like. I know how it's gripped me. I know how it's influenced my thoughts, my behaviors, my actions. So let me now think about creating a focus on being purposeful so that I'm doing the things that are aligning me more with meaningful stuff so that I don't have to feel that sense of, oh, I wish I had written that book. Oh, I wish I had gone for that position. Oh, I wish I had taken that class. Because if I had taken that class, then it may have put me in a different position to do something more meaningful in my profession. Oh, darn, I wish I had gone to the concert. I wish I had gone out to dinner. I wish I had stopped to, have a conversation with this person. Like, there's so many different ways to create meaningful intention so that we don't look back and say, gosh, why didn't I? So, what is it right now that you're thinking about? I'm dedicated to working with purpose. Yeah. Working with purpose, working professionally or personally or both, if you don't mind elaborating on that. Working with purpose, like, and I'm just going to kind of go with that for a minute. So you might say, every day I go into work, whether you're physically there or virtually, whatever, but every day I'm going to make it a point to be nice to someone. I'm going to make it a point to say good morning, good afternoon. And you might say, well, what does that have to do with moving beyond regret? Here's something that I have learned over the course of the years, right? Sometimes we have encounters with our peers, and sometimes those encounters can be a bit abrasive, or can seem a bit abrasive. Let me say it this way. Can seem a bit abrasive, or you have a conversation, you're in a meeting with someone, and you're like, gosh, where's that coming from? Like, what are they doing? What are they talking about? And you kind of get yourself into this space where you're being defensive, or you're kind of picking apart what's happening with the way that person's coming across. Sometimes we might come back at someone because they came at us. And this can be personally or professionally. So let me be clear on that. But when we get down to it, we realize, oh, this person is going through a lot. This person has stuff going on and is showing up for this person in a way that maybe he or she doesn't realize, just because of the stress, the pressure, the anxiety, whatever. Could have nothing to do with what's going on at work. And you come back at that person with something that's short, unprofessional, rude, And then when you find out what the person is going through, now let me say, we're not justified to treat people any kind of way just because we're going through something, but at least you can understand, oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were dealing with that. So that might present a situation where regret creeps in. Try to say that, like where regret creeps in, because you're like, oh shoot, I shouldn't have said that, or I shouldn't have come back at you like that. So creating a daily intention around living with purpose, or treating people with respect, or treating people with kindness, so that you don't say something or do something that you regret. Because once you say something, it's like toothpaste coming out of a tube. You can't put it back in the tube. It's already out there. So moving beyond regret and creating this, using this tip, helps us to at least start to formulate some things in our mind and in our daily habits that we can create, so that we don't look back and say, gosh, I wish I had. So it could be interactions with people. It could be your own personal goals that you have written down on a piece of paper, and you've been looking at it 10 ways to Sunday. And you're like, well, why don't I just take that step, so that you don't look at that paper next year and say, gosh, it's still sitting here on the desk. And I regret not having taken the step, done the research, picked up the phone, made the contact, made the connection, reached out and said, hey, can you support me? Can you help me? So today, as we close out, I want you to think about, what's the thing that I can start focusing on? And I'll even give you till tomorrow, because it's already what, 7:41? So the day is already over, depending on where you're watching from. But if you say tomorrow, Lord willing, I'm going to be more intentional about what I can focus on. And number 3, this tip right here is probably the biggest one, because this suggests that you are looking forward and thinking about action, so that whatever regret you may have felt before, then this is the way to say, you know what, then let me not repeat what I have been privy to before, or what I have been participating in before. So let me quickly go back through all these tips, okay? So again, tonight's topic was moving beyond regret. First topic is making peace with the past. Oftentimes, when we're holding on to stuff and we're frustrated and we're angry and we haven't let go of certain things, we haven't let go of frustration and all the things that weigh us down, then that can cause us to feel some regret, because we haven't gotten rid of some unnecessary, I shouldn't say unnecessary, we haven't gotten rid of some old energy, anxiety, and things of that nature. The second tip is to seek happiness. When we think about regret, we're often in a place where we're not feeling good about what's going on, about, who we're connected to and all the things. And so we have to shift that and say, let me be connected with the things that are going to make me happy. Because if I seek out happiness, then I don't have to look back and say, darn, I wish I had spent more time outside, looking at the trees, listen to the birds, listen to the sky, reflecting on blessings and gratitude. Like, I wish that I had spent more time. Let me say this. I hadn't planned to say this, but I want to say it here before we wrap up. And I know, got to let you go. I went to the park to walk this morning. And when I went, I had so many things on my mind. Just thinking about like all the responsibilities that I have and all the things that, have to go out the door. And I was just like, there's certain things that I just don't have the answers to. Certain ways that I just don't know how they're going to be made. All right. But as I was walking around the park, and I have said this multiple times, and I've gone live and had these conversations, but this morning I had to literally stop my brain from going down this rabbit hole of trying to figure out all the hows, and I had to look around. And in that moment, I had to choose to seek out happiness. What was happy? I looked up, and I'm telling you, the sky was like so blue. It was beautiful. It was quiet. It was peaceful. There was one tree, and I've taken a picture of this same kind of image, but this particular tree this morning, And I started to take a picture of it this morning, but I didn't. I just kind of looked and I was in the moment of it. The tree was starting to bloom, and it was like right in the middle of some other trees that still were bare from, fall, winterish looking. But this particular tree had all these white blooms that were coming through. And when I looked up, I thought, you know what? Let me just focus on that right now. Birds chirping, just like they are right now. And I was like, okay, this is what's making me happy right now. All the other stuff around me, I can't figure that out, but I had to seek, and you got to be intentional with this sometimes. And I know it might not be easy, but when we start to think about all the things, then it kind of moves us away from this getting into this rabbit hole of, and I would have missed that. Right? If I had only been thinking about all the stuff that I didn't have answers to, all the stuff that I was trying to figure out, I would have missed the opportunity to see that moment. Regret. So anyway, seeking out happiness. Just want to share that. Okay, so here's the third tip, and then I'm going to let you go. And the third tip is create a daily intention around living with purpose, which helps us to then not even embody moments where we may have to look back and regret. Okay, so I hope that you got something from that conversation or this conversation tonight. Let me just go back and check a couple of the comments before we close out. Okay, so going back to the question, working with purpose in both personal and professional. Thank you for clarifying that. I'm changing my job to be something that I can be proud of. If I can't change it, I'm leaving. And, I support that. I support the idea of thinking about what's going to fit best for you. And I'm sure doing that in a way with integrity will eliminate any regret that you might have while doing that. Been with my job for 18 years, just trying to keep a roof over my head. Now I'm trying to believe in my worth and hard work paying off. Absolutely. So just trying to keep the roof over your head. I totally understand that. Now I'm trying to believe, or I will believe. Interestingly enough, I don't know if you can see that. Oh gosh, this light. But written on this little green sheet, you can't see because of the ring light, but is the word believe. And let me just tell you, sometimes I'm like, whoa. That's the word you wrote. So you got to hold on to that. So I am trusting that you are seeking out all the things that are going to bring you that joy, bring you that happiness. So as you are moving now into your next, then that means you are intentional about setting that up so you don't look back and say, darn, I wish I had moved away from my comfort zone. Been there 18 years. I'm comfortable, but there's something that needs to serve me better so that I don't have regret. I'm going to seek out what that looks like for me. I'm super excited for you, and I'd love to hear more about that as you do that. And then working in my community to create change. And Lord have mercy, don't we need that? So kudos to you. And that's what I mean about creating daily intention around living with purpose. So you just outlined several things to make you feel connected with purpose, and those things that you can say to yourself, you know what? I stepped out there and tried it. I stepped out there so that I could seek it, so that I don't have to look back and say, oh, darn, I wish I had. Oh, darn, I wish I had. So congratulations to you on that. So listen, as we close out the conversation for tonight's show, I do want to remind you that, I know I'm doing my best. I'm just going to say, however the information comes out, I'm trying to, cut down the time, but I'm just going with the flow. And so there's little sprinkles of information that I can give you here as we have the conversation on Ignite Your True Self. But if you're listening to this and you're sitting there pondering, you're sitting there thinking, and you're saying to yourself, okay, there's more that I need to consider. There's more that applies to me. I'm trying to figure it out, and I want to know how to do that. Then I do encourage you to go to my website, truesynergy.org. There is an option for you to contact me, and then we can set up a discovery session to figure out what's happening in your space. How does this or any other conversation that I've had on the show apply to you, so that you can move forward and ignite your true self, that you can step into that next best action toward your transformation journey? Then do reach out to me and let's have that conversation. You can also Follow my link tree at True Synergy, excuse me, underscore. You can get all my social media handles. There's some other links and things that you can find on my link tree, so you can see that at the bottom of your screen. And then, of course, I will encourage you to join me next week for our topic. This one is going to be a good one. The real reason you keep procrastinating. Well, I can tell you firsthand, I have had my share of procrastinating. And, you know, as I look at it now, there's like these little tricks and things that I'm playing with myself to say, okay, what is this about? Okay. And I'm not going to get into it tonight. I'll share more next week. So you want to join me for that conversation, the real reason that you keep procrastinating. And of course, that procrastination can lead to a delay in you igniting your true self. I'll get into that more. And I do want to encourage you to follow me on Instagram at True Synergy underscore. You can also follow me on Facebook and LinkedIn at Ericka Sallee. And I do encourage you to subscribe to my YouTube channel, which is also Ericka Sallee. If you do subscribe to the channel, I also want you to turn the notification bell on so that you can see when new videos are uploaded, and then share it out to your community. All right. So on that note, I do want to say thank you for joining me for this conversation. And I look forward to seeing you all again real soon. But until I do, I want you to take care of yourselves and, yes, be well. Have a good night.